Hello and welcome to episode 5 of War Down South, fortnightly Warhammer podcast from the south coast of the UK. I am your host, Mr. Callum Slater, and I'll be joined this week as usual by my good friends Ricky Robson and Sam Nice. This week we will be going through the new releases and pre-orders from Games Workshop, Games Workshop's new voucher system for the end of September, and some personal hobby from me and the guides. In the main, we will be talking about the current state of 40k and how we see most of the current codexes fall, and we'll give them a really, really rough, shoddy, that shouldn't be listened to tier grading. And then Sam and I round off the episode talking about some cool hobby we've seen on the internet, what we're looking forward to in the new edition of 40k and going forward, and a brief chat about Confrontation, which is coming up next week, hosted by Ricky at Confrontation Events. So, sit back, grab a stiff drink, let's roll. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for joining us. I'm still your host, Callum, and I am, as always, joined by my good friends, Ricky.
Hey.
And Sam.
Hello.
How are you guys doing this week?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah, good. Frazzled, but good.
A little bit stressy. Lots coming up. But, you know, that is life. Such is.
Yep, lots coming up. Lots going on. The world's on fire. But it doesn't matter because we've got toys, and toys are the best thing.
Exactly.
We've also got booze, which is severely going to hamper my performance today because I have an absolutely awful hangover. So I've got a tummy full of painkillers and Lucozade.
Oh,
and that's gonna be powering me through the next hour or so, I think.
Old school healing remedies.
Oh yeah.
I used to always have
classic
Lucozade when I wasn't very well. I haven't really, like when I was a kid, like when I was sick, Mum always used to get us a Lucozade.
Makes you feel better, mate.
Sugar
is the best thing in the world for everything. So that's great. Yeah, I assume nobody else is hungover or pissed up because it's only mid-afternoon at the moment.
Some visitors who love to listen to me with a drunken rant.
No, not quite. Good stuff. So, you guys been doing any hobby over the last couple of weeks? Played any games?
What have you all been up to this week?
Yes, and yes.
Woo! Go on then, Sam.
So in the last 2 weeks, I came down with a serious case of Calhob 19 and have started a new project in the middle of 2 other projects. Yeah. Sort of
What?
given into whimsy and have started a Death Guard project in the middle of my Grey Knights and Traitor cards. Yeah.
Oh, is that what that was about?
No,
I just thought you were painting a random model.
The first model of many. I've finally given in. It's been something I've been thinking about for ages and I've wanted to do for a while. So I've just done it, basically. So
Awesome.
That's happened. Working on the test piece using the classic Typhus.
Little baby Typhus.
Yep.
Little arms and legs. Yeah.
On top of that, where were we? Hobby stuff. Yeah, so that was where the painting bit's been. I played my first game of 9th.
Woo!
Last weekend, maybe. I don't know what day it is anymore. I just turn up to this when I'm told. Yeah, had a game against Clayton, mutual buddy of ours for anyone who's listening. Who was rocking the old Space Nuns, and they're surprisingly terrifying.
They're good, aren't they?
Yeah, they're way more resilient than
Annoying,
I expected.
aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Having said that, I was very happy that my Marine Dread Mob still does exactly what it does. My opening volley took out 2 Exorcists and like 4 mortifiers, I think he had in that pack.
That's
Just
not bad.
Straight up. First shot of the game, I Mortis Contemptor with dual twin las cannons and a cyclone launcher just straight up did like 17 wounds to an exorcist. And yeah. But yeah, they can certainly play the attrition game very well, being able to ignore AP 1 and 2 essentially.
I feel like as like a board control army, because the units are actually fairly cheap, and how resilient they can be with the ignoring up to AP2 and 6 up feel no pain. As like Imperial board control armies go, they're actually really good at it.
Yeah,
possibly better than most, I would think.
Very, very good at it, I thought.
But that's cool. Yourself, Ricky, what have you been up to?
I've been mostly focusing around the child. So for those that probably wondering what I'm talking about, it's just my Phantom Titan.
Just my Phantom
Just doing
Titan.
a bit more work on that bad boy. Just my Phantom Titan, yeah. He's got feet
to perform
and he's got
ankle surgery
now.
like you did with the knees?
I was really surprised.
Get those locked down.
Yeah. So not as many screws. So through the process, I've been screwing it together with like 12, 15 mil screws, which has been really nice. And I've countersunk them into the model so they become invisible once you put some green stuff over them. But the foot is 9 pieces. Yeah, it's ridiculous. It's 9 pieces, so I can't actually do tons of work to it because they're not solid blocks. So I've got the feet on the bottom of the legs now, and the structure's there. The base was delivered today. I got a 250 mil piece of MDF circle. So hopefully I can screw through the bottom of that into the actual feet in multiple different areas to create some kind of structure to it. Because unfortunately she's very heavy. Just the arms are on, all the weapons are done. I'm just literally waiting on some 8 mil by 6 mil magnets, which are N52 rare earth magnets. So they've got like 2.5-3 kilos worth of pull. So hopefully that's enough to keep these weapons on. I am fearing that it will keep the weapon on, but if I'm trying to get the weapon off, I don't know if I'm gonna be able to without like ripping the arm off. So we'll see how that goes. I might have to downgrade.
I've been
it's like engineering.
I've been continuing to work on my knights because I've decided to take them to 5th confrontation, which is only next week now. So I've settled on my list and busy building and then finishing off the knights. I was struggling to find something to put in the last 100 or so points I had left, because obviously being a knight army, you don't have anything to spend those points on. But I managed to jiggle. Yeah, I think so. I was like playing around with the ideas of assassins or an inquisitor or like maybe a small guard or admech patrol. And I was just getting annoyed because I didn't think any of those would be worth losing the 2 CPs. But I've jigged a couple of things around, dropped a metal gun, dropped one of the carapace rocket launchers, and managed to fit in the Demonofuge. So I've got Ephriel Stern and Kyber. Nice. So the wacky space nun and the clown, because they don't take up any space in the detachment. They don't stop me getting any more rules, and they don't.
They're pretty self-sufficient, aren't they?
Yeah, so they give me quite a lot of additional secondary options I can go for, which is really what I was looking for the knights, because most of the time you're looking at the secondaries, you're like, I can do like 3. So that's very cool. So it gives me a couple of like fairly punchy heroes for their like table space and what you pay for them.
I was going to say the Harlequin, he can be quite the blender on the guard equivalent, can't he?
You can have like 8 attacks at strength 4, AP 1 or 2, and just like churn his way through units. So the idea is just to use those as little either objective holding pieces or dropping in, picking on characters and small units and stuff like that. So that's quite cool. So I'll see how they actually play. I've picked up the actual models for them, and then if they turn out to be a good investment, I'll convert up like a pair of like Admechy weird assassins to actually fit them into the theme of the army going down the road.
Nice.
So we'll see how that goes. So that's cool. So let's move on to the new releases over the last couple of weeks. Has anybody got anything they would like to pick up first?
The only thing that I really paid attention to was the thing we were all chatting about the other day, which is the new Lord of the Rings book.
Oh, the Quest of the Ringbearer supplement.
That's it, Quest of the Ringbearer supplement. Yeah, there's some really cool stuff in that.
Yes,
I'm quite excited by that book.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely love the Middle-earth battle strategy game, and all of the supplements they've put out for it are top notch. This one's really narrative focused, so it's got a bunch of scenarios that are all based around Frodo's journey from the Shire all the way to Mount Doom, and then so there's lots of thematic narrative scenarios within that to play, like running through Farmer Maggot's crops to like getting through Moria and Cirith Ungol all the way to Mount Doom, which is really cool.
So did they include the old Fantasy Fellowship rules from White Dwarf?
Yes, yeah, they've updated those since they were initially printed like 15 years ago or something like that in White Dwarf. So you can now create your own like Fantasy Fellowship from like a list of potential people who could have been a ring bearer at particular points in time, which is really cool. And then that can be used to slot into the narrative campaign, which is really cool. I've seen one which was like there was like an all-female one someone did that they used an example on the website, which is all really cool. You could have like Bilbo trying to take the ring to Mount Doom and all of the heroes that are alive around them. So like that would be a dwarf-heavy fellowship with all of his buddies from Thorin's company. So that's really cool. And then there's a bunch of new legendary legions for matched play as well, which are great, which all take certain points from the books and films and create themed lists with specific benefits, but a restriction of models. So those are really cool. Like the Black Riders are ace. We just take a bunch of ring race on horses running around screaming at people. And
I quite like the Cirith Ungol list. That was quite tasty. I like the flavour. You've got the two warring captains in it, and the animosity rules, and makes Shelob a bit more playable.
Yeah. That was the thing that I was like, oh yeah, Shelob's going to be in that list, but she's good for her points, but she's not like the beat stick monster that you kind of need, especially if you're playing with a restricted set of models. So her being able to eat an orc and like gain loads of rerolls, and then if she's fighting essentially any good models, getting bonuses and loads of attacks and stuff, actually makes her into a bit more of a frontline piece instead of just picking away on people at the edges, which is really cool. I love that. I got that delivered today, so I'll be thumbing through that later, giving me some impetus to paint up my Lurtz's Scouts, because I love that. Cool. We've not really seen a lot else from GW. Is there anything you would like to see, Ricky? Anything that you've seen that's come out that we've not already discussed previously?
Not that's come out that I've really paid much attention to, but what's up for pre-order is quite interesting, I think. You've got the new chapter approved mission pack, the tactical deployment.
It's in a lot of rage.
Controversial. It seems to have upset a lot of people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's that classic. Yeah. You don't have to do it. You don't have to buy it. It's just something else to add a different aspect of 40k. I mean, as most of us obviously know, it's it's been done in the Warhammer Fantasy world for a very long time, bringing your own terrain and so on. And this I like the idea of this to be, I don't know, from a tournament organizer's point of view, which all the other tournament organizers seem to be quite grumpy about, and they're calling it a nice rip-off, which I find quite amusing, because again, they don't have to deploy it, they don't have to use this book, but I think it would work, and the terrain is, you choose your terrain to suit your army, to build around your army, so it's advantageous for you. Like, it's not like you're just picking 5 random pieces of terrain and throwing them down. Like you pick these around. I like that you're picking it around your army. Your opponent's doing the same thing. It puts another real
it adds
enjoyment aspect maybe onto the game.
To it, I'm not sure I like it, but I don't lament the fact that it exists.
Yeah, I think I'm in the same camp.
I think it's a really useful tool for people starting events, or for clubs that are, or people who want to like arrange an event and they don't have the luxury of having, even like 5 tables worth of terrain. So if people all have like, a lot of people have got a board, or they've got a board between them and their mates. So you could easily, if you were going to an event using it, split up that between you. You've all got your own few little bits and pieces. And then, you can run a tournament anywhere as long as you've got tables, which is really cool. Like you said, I think the largest AOS tournament, and used to be fantasy tournament in the UK, the South Coast GT, which is usually just up the road from us. I think for the last 5 years since AOS has been out, you have to bring your own terrain because they don't have 100 tables worth of terrain access to play at that tournament. So it's it'll be interesting to see if GW deploy that at their own tournaments up at Warhammer World. I think that would rub me up the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows? If they use that as a bridge between maybe updating the terrain and tables up at Warhammer World, I could probably swallow that pill. Because I like playing at Warhammer World, but some of the terrain can be a little bit dated and a little bit out of place, and sparse on a couple of instances. But I would, you're playing at Warhammer World. It's the best venue to play Warhammer in because you're in a castle and you're surrounded by toys and you're at Warhammer World.
And then you can bugger off the Bugmans.
Yes. Yeah. Exactly. So like I said, I don't mind that this thing exists. It doesn't sound like it's going to get adopted across the board by most or if any of the tournaments I go to. So I really don't mind at all. Like I said,
not by the collective wah that has gone out over the internet. I would say you're right.
Yeah, you don't have to. Yeah,
but that's Warhammer through and through, isn't it? People scream before they
not everything
before they look
for
into
everyone.
It a bit more, and
this exists.
Exactly.
It's like it's like there was some consternation about the what are the Warhammer Junior novels called?
Yeah, I know the one.
Yeah. So there's like an AOS one, and there's a 40k one. They're like mini novels, and they're obviously much less grimdark and like people getting torn to pieces, and more like adventure.
So is this the one with like
Warhammer
the Joker
Adventures or something like that?
Yeah, so they're a lot more like cartoony. But they are aimed for people who are like 10.
None of the kids run into Famir or anything
or any of the things that happen in Fulgrim, the heresy. That should be on the top shelf at GW. You should have
Can
to.
You imagine?
What are you reading there, little Timmy? Well, Mummy, this is a cartoon about a giant spaceman that's painting with his own poo.
Yes, and that's the most PG bit. Some of the things that happen to Fulgrim in one of the short stories is absolutely grim. There's like weird tools that go inside him and open, and it's just yeah.
Yep.
So
it's like reading Inquisition War back in the day.
Yes, yeah. Again, that would definitely be top shelf. Show us your ID to buy. So when that came out, like people were like, "Oh, they're making it for kids," and well, it's a company that makes toy soldiers, and secondly, like it doesn't take anything away from the fact that your universe exists, or the 40k universe exists how you've always interpreted it. It's just here's a good introduction for kids that don't need to read about like Marines punching through people's faces and making their heads explode, because they'll get that when they read their codexes. You'll get round to it. It's just so that's very cool. So not really a lot else. I think a couple of weeks ago we already spoke about the Lumineth starting to get their release. It seems like the Sons of Behemoth are imminent from all of the community posts. So good. I can't wait to see those models on the table. How many big ones you can get into 2,000 points, and then buy that because I want it. because you'll have
I have a problem.
Yeah, you have like 3 big models. Oh, that's great. That's like awesome. So that'd be really cool. The other big news: if everybody who has ever ordered from Games Workshop checks their emails, which I absolutely would not have done until someone pointed it out to me, probably got an email from GW saying that they're willing to give you a voucher of varying size if you spend, I think it's like £100 before the end of September. So I got offered a £20 voucher against an order in October if I spend £100 by the end of the month, and I was like,
done.
Well, no, I was like, I've already spent quite a lot this month on toys. I've already spent quite a lot. I've been to Centre Parks. The hobby budget's really scraping it this month. but it finishes on the 30th of September, which is payday. So that's fine. I'm sure I can take advantage of that.
And of course, if it's delayed, you will of course find Callum turning tricks down Old Southsea.
It seems that some people have
I got one of those.
£6 if you spend 40.
That's because I don't order from GW like Direct a lot, to be honest.
So it's quite
but it's I think it's very cool. There are a lot of models that you can't get through independent retailers. So it's if there's a bunch of stuff on there that you're like, that's a little bit of an incentive to go do it. Because obviously, through an independent retailer, you can get anything from 10 to 25% off the normal ranges. So getting a voucher for 20 quid, isn't economically comparable to just saving 15, 20%. But the stuff that you can order directly, like a lot of the Middle-earth range, and 100 quid would do you a most of a decent Middle-earth army as well. So having that there, or just one of the big box games, they're all up in the like 90 to 100 quid range. That's very cool. So I'll be taking advantage of that for sure. And the email said that there's more vouchers on the way, which is really interesting. That if GW are interacting with the consumer base a bit more like that. I think in the email they said it's been a ridiculously profitable year for them so far. I think they, even despite the fact they were shut for 6 weeks because of the lockdown, I think they smashed past the profit margins from last year. I saw an article about their stocks become highly competitive based off of this year. So that's really cool. So if they're in effect, continuing to fuel that expansion and that growth by encouraging people to buy things and essentially giving them free stuff, I don't think there's anything really wrong with that. I don't think you can really argue with it. I mean, a lot of people might lament the size of the voucher they're offered. But if you don't spend a lot of money with them, why would you get the same reward? Kind of. It's like an independent who offers like a point scheme or whatever. Like, you're not going to get a huge discount on stuff if you only spend a tenner every couple of months with them. Whereas someone who buys all of their stuff through them is going to have loads of points to spend.
Yeah.
So so it'll be interesting to see if that's something that continues. If they do that like a couple of times a year, or what the other vouchers will be, and the criteria for that. It's different, so that's cool. And I think it's the second. It's the second like voucher reward system that they've already done this year, because they did the order on the website before we're open thing, didn't they? Where you got you got a fiver for every 50 quid you spent or something like that on GW and Forge World. So it looks like it's something that they're going to be using as a marketing technique going forward. So that's cool. I don't have any qualms about throwing money at them for toys. So I'm cool with that.
Yeah, it's good, and it's a good step forward. I can see there's been a few people having a whinge about it already, but hey, such is life, as you say.
Yeah. I imagine some of the people who are whinging are the same people who used to say, "Oh, they don't do sales anymore. I used to get 2 rhinos for a tenner." Blah 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 blah. But
old bastard.
Stop being old. Is my response. Yeah.
To stop holding on to it.
So I think that kind of wraps up intros, what we've been working on, and what is new in the world of Warhammer. So I'm going to take a short break, and if you hold on, we will jump into our main section where we're going to talk about our thoughts about this current state of 40k and where we think the codexes are sitting. So join us in a second. Okay, thanks for rejoining us in our main segment. Still Callum, Ricky, and Sam here, and we're going to be talking about with the imminent approach of the first codexes of 9th edition, where we think all of the current codexes currently stand. Probably easy just to say, let's ignore Marines and Necrons, because I think we know currently, based on the current books, what ends of the spectrum those are on. One of them is near the tippy top, and one of them is near the bottomy bottom. And they're going to be replaced in a couple of weeks anyway. So I think that's a fair assumption to make, that Necrons are the best army in the game and Marines are the worst.
Yeah?
Yeah, sure. Yes, that's the one. That's the one.
Yes. I have nightmares about fighting Necron warriors and dream of playing against Thunderfire cannons and repulsor executioners. Okay, cool. So I think we'll start with probably the positive stuff. Where do we think? Who do we think's clustering right at the top at the moment? We've had a couple of months for the game to set in now. We've all now technically played at least a game. Good job, Sam. So we've, we're technically experienced, and let's open the floor. So who do we think's at the tippy top?
At the very top.
Yep.
I think Harlequins for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if they're like the number one, but I don't know if we could have a number one right now. Could we?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I personally think they are the closest to it. Having played yours a number of times already this edition, and Tom Suter's Harlequins at our local club, and just looking at what they can do, just opening that codex and that Psychic Awakening supplement, they can do everything apart from like physical board control by blocking out areas of the table, but the army's so quick you can technically move the same unit 3 times in a turn. There's no section of the board that is safe from them. They can fly 20 inches or whatever directly towards you, fire a load of fusion pistols in your face, you're dead. The bikes are great in both shooting and combat. The characters are great, and you can build a bunch of different styles of list. Tom's been using some like larger combat blocks of Harlequins to sort of be a second wave after his bikes and shining spears.
So there's his list came in obviously for confrontation. I won't obviously talk about his list because that's not fair. But so there's one faction of the Harlequins which is very good at webway assaults, so they can all pretty much just deep strike in, and they can do bits and pieces like that. They can quite easily.
They've got a stratagem where they can return a unit to reserve, like swooping hawks.
That's it.
Which is very cool. I was like, and they, I think that faction gets to put 2 units in the webway for.
They can use that stratagem twice.
Yeah.
So effectively, they can actually get a lot more in. But
so that's very cool. There was a lot open up to them with the. I think when we first played and you said, I've got this 9-inch aura and I can make everything -1 to wound instead of just the infantry now when you attack me. I was like, sweet. I don't want to play this.
It's pretty good. And I think through the games that I've played with them as well, like they even from back when you made a mistake with a Harlequin army and you then really suffered, or you went second with Harlequins, you got absolutely battered. They've just got so much resource now to be able to go second and pull back from an absolute battering. Like I played pool when we were at Centre Parks, absolutely trashing me the first couple of turns with his Thousand Suns, and I just managed to scrape a win from just being able to focus with them a lot better than you used to be able to, and so many more tricks to be able to keep themselves alive. Like they're definitely up there with the big boys.
That combination of having a load of new rules to play with the Psychic Awakening and all of the different special rules the characters can choose from now, the additional round of stratagems, and then
and more CPs.
And CPs just opens up that sort of game design space for you just to be able to do a lot more. In a similar vein, I think that's where Custodes are sitting as well. I think they're a bit below Harlequins in where I think they're at, but they are still, they're the poster boy of what people thought this edition would be about, which is I've got to be able to take objectives off of you, and then I've got to be able to hold it. And I've played a few games against Custodes this edition, and if someone passes their 4-up saves at a slightly more than average increment, if they're taking 5, for every 5 they're taking, if they're passing 3 without that being flipped on its head, you almost get behind with what you should be killing. I had a game against Mark, one of our locals, on Thursday. It was a really great game. I had a couple of shooting phases early mid game, and they just crippled me because I couldn't finish these units off. That then cascaded the fact that I didn't score secondaries. They were still on objectives, and then the game just got away from me in an instant. So they're definitely one of the armies. I mean, they're an army that everything hits on 2s. Everything's got 2-up saves. They're soon, their storm shields are soon going to give them 1-up armor saves and 3-up invulnerables.
And that's literally when the Space Marine Codex drops as well.
Yes, yeah. So once that FAQ drops, as far as we're aware, all of the weapons and war gear will get updated across the game.
So it's not that long.
Not that long at all, since Sword and Shield Custodes are going to be the actual
It's quite annoying because they just built all my spear ones, and I've gone, maybe. I
think the spear ones have got, buy more. I think the spear ones have still got space because they're now cheaper than the sword and board ones.
Much cheaper,
by a considerable amount, which is obviously factored in that storm shield change. Plus there are the other troop options. You've got all of the forge rod ones with like the giant combi bolters, the ones with like the ones with like the melter spears, I think, are another one. So there's a lot there that does in some instances more generic things. So like the guys with the pyrite spears, I think they are like they're a deep stroking melt gun unit.
Yeah, effectively.
But they're custodes doing it. So they do all the good things that custodes are good at. So they hit on 2s. They've got like 3 wounds, toughness 5, 2 up arm save, 4 up inrun. But they're also playing a traditional role within 40k, which is the drop in, melt something, and then we'll probably charge it and kill it.
Yeah, the not quite suicide melter squad.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And the guys with the Sagittarium, I think they are. With the big like combi bolters that are essentially just a heavy bolter and a one-shot disintegrator bolted to each other. Like they put out a good volume of firepower that you can base your army around or hold your line with. And again, in a unit of 3, there's like 9 wounds, toughness 5, 2 up save. You're probably not paying too many points for them in regards to that. That's a troop unit holding an objective. You can give them all like Misericordias for no points. They're all running around with power weapons as well. They're a very good army, and the bikes are just outstanding.
Always have been, probably always will be.
Yeah. Well, it's
top tier
it's a custody on a bike. It's not fact.
And I think everyone knows how good the Alaris Terminators are, and just the characters. Like I just can't ever seem to kill Custodes characters.
No, me neither. Always leave one with at least a wound.
Just can't get through those invulnerable saves with the toughness and the little tricks they've got for minuses to hit all around.
Literally, the only thing I've ever killed one of those bastards with is a Knight's thermal cannon. That was my Custodes opener at the GT. It's the only thing I ever killed the bastards with. Yeah,
I had on Thursday when I played Mark, I had I think at least 2 rounds of shooting a volcano lance from my Castellan at Trajan Valoran and didn't take any wounds. And then I
didn't take any.
Didn't take any. Overcharged, calls wrath at him in a different shooting phase. Didn't take any wounds.
You're
like just him and the bike captain were just sat there and it's like can't touch. If you roll 3 ups, then you roll 3 ups, don't you? It's just
of course.
It's just I had an opportunity where because I had assassinate. Because I thought he was going to take while we stand we fight. Well, see, so the idea between that was then every character, the 3 important characters in their army, if I kill them, each one of those is an 8-point swing, because he's not getting the 5 points from where we stand we fight. And then I'm getting the 3 points from assassinate. And I had an instance where I managed to get my Castellan up into a building that they're all hiding behind. Opened up on the Vexilla, Trajan and a Calidus assassin that was there, and just killed the Vexilla and didn't touch anything else. It was like good grief. I love Custodes. Beautifully painted Custodes are also great. They're one of those armies you can really put some time and attention into. They look cool on the table, and they're currently crushing it, which is cool. It's a different army, different type of army. Like they do everything really well, and like I said, if you concede the board to them, you're not getting those objectives back off of them without a fight that you're likely to win.
Considerable effort.
So that's really cool. Obviously, Marines are at the top.
Yeah,
their current combination of codex and supplements is just outrageous.
And general ability.
I mean,
they didn't.
Yeah, they didn't change from last edition. Really, they're still alpha.
Yes,
and we'll just see what new toys they got when the new book comes.
Yes, I'm expecting a massive radical change on how the successors work, possibly even a change to the Devastator Tactical and Assault Doctrines. I can still see that being a mechanism, but maybe not doing what it currently does. But we'll have to wait and see for that. So that's cool, and I'm sure we'll talk about them in depth as soon as that codex is released. So who do we else see? I think Custos and Harlequins are at the top, and Marines are there as well. And then I think we've got like a bunch of codexes that are, I think, depending on player skill, can go toe to toe with those type of armies in the right mission and the right secondary setup. So
you're talking Death Guard, Thousand Suns.
I don't think Thousand Suns are there. I don't think Thousand Suns are there at all. The problem with Thousand Suns they've got, and we might as well talk about them now, is that they instantly give up. Again, if your opponent doesn't have a psyker, which you don't see a lot of armies with them anymore. Marine armies don't tend to have them anymore because chaplains are better, and a librarian doesn't do anything. But not taking that like odd one psyker in your army opens up against like Grey Knights, Eldar, Thousand Suns, Demons. Those armies that do run psyker heavy, the ability to get Abhor the Witch.
Yeah, Abhor the Witch is basically 3 points you hand over, isn't it?
Yeah, it's if you're playing a normal game of 40k against like a Thousand Suns or a Demon Army or Grey Knights, whatever, those 15 points are almost guaranteed. And if you've got a way to kill characters, because they do kind of have to be up and around their units supporting them, like you can double team that with Assassinate and just absolutely
trounce them,
get after your opponent if you've got the ability to do that. I really like them. I love my Thousand Suns. I just struggle to see how they keep up at the moment. Obviously, when they get their 2 wounds and their extra wounds across the board in their new book,
that could make a big difference. But like you say, a 15-point deficit is difficult to come back from.
Yeah, I would also like to see, even if it's the case that they tack on 150 points to Magnus, just to make him, and conversely, Mortarion as well, like just to make them almost as good as they were at the start of this edition, or Magnus was, in 8th edition, and then how Magnus was at like the end of 7th. They should be like a board-dominating piece, I feel. And at the moment, they're just sort of, it's a guy with a 3-up vulnerable save, maybe, with 18 wounds. He's dead. And that makes me really sad. There's a lot of cool tricks you can do with Thousand Suns, don't get me wrong, and they're also a really good target for sort of like mixed Chaos armies because their characters are still so good.
So where should we put them?
I wouldn't put them in the sort of... Not that I like to do this, but I would say with like a half decent player, you're probably looking at, you would be happy with 3 wins out of 5.
Okay.
With a really experienced player who really knows what they're doing, sure, someone can always go 4-1, 5-0. But I don't think they're one of those sort of forgiving armies at the moment.
So let's say we are going to have 3 tiers. We got tier 1. The amazing stuff. 2, the good stuff that can go toe to toe if you're a good player.
And then garbage tier.
And then we got garbage tier. Let's just put them in the middle then.
Yeah, I would slap them like right in the middle of the middle tier. Because they've got some utility again against a lot of armies. They can do what they want to do really well. But if they come up against a strong list or even not a weak list, I think they'll really struggle. Death Guard are very good. I don't think they're the all-conquering army that people initially thought they would be. I think there's a lot of play that actually once you theory. Like, they look really good on paper, but I think the actual mechanics of playing a game with them, they're a lot more difficult to play with than like you initially think. I definitely found that. I mean, I was like I said, I designed my army to do like a couple of different things, and it's like when this works on paper, I can get here turn 1, I can kill this stuff with this turn 1, turn 2, I'm not dead, turn 2, you're dead. I've got board control, game's over. Like,
and then you have to remember you're actually playing against another army.
Yeah, well, like you can sort of factor that in, and if you've got something reliable like Cloud of Flies, which automatically protects a unit, you can reliably keep something alive, and then you're doing it turn 2. But actually, like moving around terrain, depending on how your opponent moves with their army, like it's not as cut and dry as the big unit of Plague Marines pops up, all wanders across the board and kills everything, or the big unit of Terminators comes down and just that the Terminator build, I think, is the easier one to probably use. But then again, if your opponent is able to successfully screen you out or even tie them up early if you deploy them, or at least get in their way, you can just take them out of the game without really having to fight them. So that's quite cool. Yeah, but they've got a lot of things that armies want in this edition. They're resilient. They're really good at taking people off of objectives, and you can run quite a large army with them. And the Demon Engine build is really good. Just having all of those Demon Engines with good invulnerable saves, having them all with like 4-up invulnerable saves and disgustingly resilient, all clustered around some characters and just taking off everything in range. Really, really cool there. I don't know if you guys agree with that.
Yeah.
No, I agree.
I'll go with that.
Definitely tier 1 for us.
Okay, so I would say they're tier 2.
Would you?
Yeah, I don't think they're. I initially at the start of the edition, and when I was playing my first couple of games with them, for sure I was like, yeah, these are one of the best armies in the game.
Okay,
but now
let's put them tier 2, and we'll see
what I say goes. So
because we'll come back to this.
Yeah, that's
in say maybe early next year when we've had a few more codexes and then see where everything sits, or we'll come back to it when we've got all the codexes.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I imagine we'll continually run through it, especially after like when points adjustments and big FAQs come through chapter approved, etc. That's really cool.
So what else in tier 1, if anything?
I don't think there's anything else. I think Harlequins, Marines, and Custodes are just cut and dry above everything else. Like quite visibly, and I think, and I think I don't actually mind that. See, I would prefer to have more armies in the sort of fat middle that are able to do more than having more armies that are better against everything else.
Yeah,
and I know it's really strange because it then seems like these 3 codexes are just so good and everybody else is not as good. But if you had half the armies that were that good, and then the other half were like tier 2, tier 3, then those tier 2, tier 3 armies are at more of a disadvantage because there's more books that are better than them. If you sort of follow.
Gotcha.
So why don't you pick a codex, Sam?
I'd like to talk about the Sisters some more, just because of how surprised I was at how good they've made that book.
Mm-hmm.
Like I keep calling them Destiny dice because I'm used to the Zinc shop from AOS. Miracle dice. That mechanic is so good. Like there were points in the game I had where like there were just crucial saves that Simon had to make. It's just like, there we go.
6s.
Miracle dice. Done.
I was like that, and you're like, okay, well, that's fine. I've kind of screened them out really well. And then they go, okay, it's my charge phase. That's an 11-inch charge. Oh. Yeah, of course. Whoops. Yeah, I would certainly say there's a few different builds within the Sisters army. Like if you go like full assault orientated Bloody Rose, like that's very scary. That's one of the top combat armies in the game, like hands down. I think it's Ardent Heart, I think is the resilient one. I can't remember what it's actually called. But
the other one with all the flags.
Yes, yeah. They're the ones that use a load of magifiers to create just bubbles of ignore AP1 and AP2. Love that for just sort of almost that grinding board control style of play.
Yeah,
you can have.
They've just got enough units that you can't ignore. Like there's so many good options in there.
Yeah.
That I found myself having to react to what they were doing more than attempting to play the mission, because there's so many things you just can't leave unchecked in the list.
Well, that's it. I mean, an Exorcist doesn't ignore line of sight with its big, good missiles. So it's there. You've got to deal with it. Like you say, there's, usually sometimes, sometimes there's a big unit of Zephyrim that's going to come down and punch you in the face, or there's, a couple of rhinos filled with Repentia. And it's like, I've got to deal with all of this, and Celestine's obviously always flying around, giving things 5 up invulnerable saves, and
she gets around a bit now, doesn't she? The dirty cow.
She's very good though. She's always been great, and she now really works within the Codex really well.
Rather than she used to just be kind of almost strapped on, didn't she?
And just bolted into every Imperium army because it was worth the 1 CP for her.
Totally guilty of that.
Well, it's it, isn't it? But yeah, it's nice to see she works.
Yes, absolutely.
She does. It's just like other little things as well, like the preachers in the Sisters Codex. It's almost identical to the one in the Guard Codex. Yeah, it's 5 points cheaper and it has more rules.
There you go. But that more than anything just shows the age of that Guard Codex. So I would say Sisters are towards the top of tier 2, with the right combination of build, sub-faction and player, for sure.
I think with a really experienced player, they could be an absolute nightmare.
I do think you can hamstring them early on. Like if you can knock down those quick assault threats in the balanced army, then they will be hesitant to try and take the middle of the board. Because ignoring AP1 and 2 is really good, but they seem to be dependent on just small units of 5 Sisters of Battle, or 5 Celestians or Seraphim or whatever. And toughness 3 with a 5 up save, when you've only got 5 wounds in that unit, does tend to disappear quite quickly. So I think that's a good way to go at that sort of balanced grindy army, is just hit the assault stuff as soon as possible. Sort of take the Exorcist shooting on the chin if you have to ignore them, and then just sort of try and get into the middle of them and wrestle for them for those objectives, which is really cool. Not played against the sort of bloody hand assault army yet though. Interested to maybe try that out in the future, because the Repentia are great models. The Mortifiers are great models. I like Arco-Flagellants and all the weird sort of wibbly stuff in the Sisters Inquisition stuff. So that's quite cool. Let's talk about Craft Worlds, Ricky, shall we?
I don't think they're as bad as what people make out.
I don't think so. I think
the Eldar community really cries about them, and they think that they've been really hard done by. But I really don't think that's the case at all.
I think, I would say there are a lot of units that you look at in that book, and you go, "This book is trash." Just because some of those units just you can't really justify taking them.
Banshees.
Banshees are top of that list. They are right at the bottom of the garbage. You got to sift through instructions on how to build stuff and cans of Coke and everything just to actually dig a hole deep enough to see the Banshees.
I appreciate the mocking. But when the new FAQ drops and they do gain a strength 4 power sword, I can see them definitely making it. I think they're only 60 points or so now for 5 of them, and that is not something that is to be mocked at for something that's going to add 3 to a charge, ignore Overwatch. It's not bad.
It would be nice to see them have their day again.
They've never
there's
had
a chance. Well, no, not since when Power Swords ignored armor saves.
Yeah.
Even then,
Oh, I don't know. I used to have
Even-
tons of success. Tons of success.
No, don't believe it. But yeah, I like Elder. Like Shining Spears are awesome. Their vehicles are awesome.
Yeah, their vehicles are definitely sitting there with some of the best I think so far. With just especially when we're talking build your own craft world.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
And we can give them a cover save because vehicles can't have cover saves. Yeah. So giving them a cover save to have a 2+ save. They've got long range weapons,
and they reroll a hit and a wound every time they attack. It's like
that's what? Dirty, especially for a Falcon. That's silly cheap.
Mm-hmm.
Now at 125 points. Yeah. I mean that added to small aspect warrior units as well. It's the era of the Falcon again, which is the era of the small aspect warrior units. So it's nice to see that they've definitely got something going for them.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of different MSU like Elder builds out there for sure. That I think again, experienced player can win a good chunk of games with them. But they do. I would say they do suffer the same sort of things like we were saying Harlequins used to struggle from, which is that sort of if they're bloodied early, I think they'll struggle, and obviously losing any of those units is just it's like a cascade of things that then go wrong as soon as you start to lose stuff. But
obviously Dark Reapers.
Dark Reapers are great.
Another good unit. I'd like to see a bit more happen with the Wraiths.
Yeah, for sure.
I've got a lot of Wraiths built and unbuilt that sit in a cabinet, and they have done for a good few editions.
Yeah. Love me, Father.
It's just they're just expensive and they're not quick.
No,
and they just are a bit like meh.
There was that brief period in 7th.
Well, when the Yandon book was around.
It might have been 8th when you could run them as Yunari and have them either move 3 times in a turn, each one of those times advancing, and then firing.
That was 7th, wasn't it?
Yeah, and then firing the. No, I think it was 8th. I think it was in 8th. Yeah, you could because it was under like the first like Yunari book, and you could advance them, psychic power move them with the warlock power. So moving advance them again, and then at that point you're like, okay, well I can either shoot twice with the Yunari power with the flamers that are also hitting at like strength whatever, loads of AP, or move them again and then just fire once. So there's loads that you used to be able to do with them, but that was very silly. So
it was a silly time.
Yeah, I think if they give them like 4, maybe even 5 wins, like 4 wins apiece, like decent toughness, decent save.
I mean, they've got a decent toughness. Yeah. Their save's okay, but I think they need that extra wound.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely think they're tier 2. They've got a lot of optimism coming, and I think they'll do well. They're not trash.
No.
But I definitely think this is the addition for them. I'm still holding on to that. Like, I think the codex it's due it. With all the new Space Marine stuff that's come out and how the chapters are working, like the craft worlds themselves, like your Ulthways, your Biltans, are just not as good as the ones you can build.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not good because they should be better.
I would say that's the same with a lot of the build your own stuff.
Yeah. And obviously the range needs some new toys, I think.
Yeah.
Like some other ranges, obviously not just. I'm not going to be an Eldar player that cries that his range hasn't been updated, but
they just still have some of the old sculpting, doesn't it?
Yeah, they've got some of the older stuff still, and it needs. They've already started doing it, so why not continue?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they're the big Codex model release range for next year.
I do have a real strong feeling that they are.
Cool. So if we jump from Azurani and Craftwords to Drakari, how do we feel about those?
I don't want to say it.
I've not actually heard anything about them in action in this edition so far.
I think they struggle. I think
they're definitely junk, aren't they? At the moment?
I would say that you're to have them compete. You've got to be a very good player with them, which obviously a lot of people aren't very good players. Some people just play the game, and also you have to run essentially the combination of just the pure good bits. Like there's so much like crap in the book. Essentially, you're sort of forced to run. Well, I'm obviously going to run two units of Talos. I'm going to run some either planes or Reapers with Dark Technomancy, or Test of Skill. Like there's a lot in there that just seems to be now outdated for the game that we're playing. They got to a good place sort of at the end of 8th because they had the Psychic Awakening, so it gave the Witch Cults a place in the game. But that was mainly for shooting, and you've got Witch Cults in Razor Wings and Void Ravens. It's like it's not even the combat stuff. It's not the iconic like witch things.
No.
I think So I think they're due a big shake up on their rules. I'm not sure how they do. In all honesty, they can still be a super brutal army if they get to go first. They're super quick. Like I said, dark technomancy on. So that's the +1 wound, +1 damage, and then any ones they roll to hit, they take more wounds. On Reapers and Venoms with their splinter cannons can just cause a huge amount of damage, but they can't. They just can't. The army can't take the hit, and your Talos can't be everywhere. Your Grotesques can't be everywhere, and even if you've got those units, you're really, really light on the ground with for bodies, I think.
Yeah.
So we'll have to see. They've got some tricks. They've got a couple of their like Court of the Archon units that are individual models, but they're not characters, and they're cheap enough to like strategic reserve like a bunch of them just for 1 CP. So it's very easy for them to just walk on the table edge and like do deploy scramblers or some of the secondaries because they're not characters, which is kind of cheeky. But relying on like a Lamian walking on the board edge to sort of win you the game is not really what an army should be focused on, I don't think, at the moment. So we'll see.
Sounds like a sad foghorn moment for someone that's fallen a bit.
Yeah, they were a very dominant army when they came out, and they went through like a phase of moving away from all of the guns and planes into more of the resilient homunculus side of things. Then a bit more mixed at the end of 8th with planes, Ravagers and Grotesques. But now I think they're in a bit of a funny place. They're still a very popular army, I think, just because the model range I still think is outstanding, considering how old it is now. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see for them.
So what are we thinking? Are we sticking them in the garbage? Or
I would say they're
bottom of tier 2.
I would say they're top tier 3. Like with the right player, right build. Again, obviously you can always go 4-1, 5-0, but I think it's harder for them to win games for sure than a lot of armies. So I put them in 3.
I agree.
Where Necrons are, where I think Tyranids probably are. Well, without a lot of experience seeing them in this edition, so I'm not really going to talk about them at length. But there seems to be like 1 or 2 things you can do that's really cool with Tyranids. But you can't.
It's always been the case, though, isn't it? There's always been 1 or 2 cool things you could do.
Yeah, I think the problem that they've got is that they've got like some good units and good combinations. So like the double move, double advancing, like massive blocks. So Gene Stealers are really good. Like Old One Eye is good. Hive Guard are good, but like there's no interplay between those different parts of the army.
No.
So
effectively, you end up just strapping units onto an army.
Yeah, that's exactly.
They all have their individual role to play.
Yeah, you take detachment to do this, detachment to do this, detachment to do this, and it's just sort of, it just feels all very like just gaffer taped together from what I've seen. Unfortunately, I'd say Gene Stealer Cult are down there in the trash as well. Which
I've not seen enough of them to really comment either this edition so far.
Just for like, I pretty much played Gene Stealer Cult all last year, and they were great. I think just on their nose, probably theirs was one of the most powerful codexes within itself for what it could do, and just how that reflects now in ninth is scary to see that you're playing with all the same units and rules, but they just I think you would struggle to win games with them, personally.
Yeah.
I might pick them back up, and try and wave the flag of the revolution and the uprising, and almost. I started running the sort of army I did at the end of 8th, which was like 140, 150 odd models, to sort of see if I
noticed
to see if I could play with that army within time limits, as sort of like a why are people not being able to finish their games if I can play with 150 odd models and finish 5 turns? Then anybody should. And that was a lot of fun, but just as a direct comparison, it's sort of like the 1,800 point army I was playing with, or the 2,000 point army I was playing with at the end of the edition, is like 2,400 points now. And it's like 150 of those points are just my normal guys going up a point, and you don't see what you get for that increase in value, which is very strange. So yeah, they're unfortunately down there. I don't think they get a lot out of their Psychic Awakening. The Ridge Runners are good, but if you've got Ridge Runners, they can be quite difficult to hide because they're on big bases, and if your opponent looks at them, they explode. So
So tier 1, we ended up with Death Guard, Harlequin, Space Marines, and Custodians.
I think Death Guard we bumped down to tier 2. I think we've only got 3 on tier 1.
Yeah, so we went Harlequin,
Poster Boys, and Clowns.
Yeah. So in the trash tier, we're saying Drukari, Tyranids, Necrons at the moment,
and Gene Cult.
Gene Cult.
Yeah.
So are we just literally putting everything else as we're just going to wait and see?
Yeah, I think there's a lot. Obviously, there's a lot of codexes we've not talked about. Yeah, and the right sort of matchups, like in the right combination, like some of these armies could spoil a tournament for one of those top armies. They might not be geared to fight them. The person using one of those top armies might not be as experienced, or they've only just picked them up, or they're just gone, this is the best army in the game, I've bought it. And they're not, not necessarily clued up about playing the game. So you could see some of these armies knocking those ones off, but I can't see them consistently doing that over 5-6 games on a weekend. So it's interesting. So because obviously loads of them are like rock, paper, scissors against each other. So it's like this codex is really good against this one's good against this one. But there's so many.
We've got 5 games to talk about. So
yeah, exactly. So there's a lot to go on in there. I think. So inside there, there's Imperial Knights, there's Chaos Knights. I think the Imperial Knights are ahead of the Chaos Knights in that regard, just by warrant the fact that they've got more options.
They've got more. There's a few extra things you can bolt onto them that don't take up organisation slots that can boost performance.
Yeah, I would say unless you're running the sort of like tide of lots and lots of greater demons are probably towards the bottom of tier 2. You can get a lot of success. I've seen people win. Someone won an event with like a Slanesh army in 40k. But running like just multiple greater demons, loads of their names, and just sort of almost overlapping all of their exalted demon abilities to just be that sort of, you can't deal with it all at once. That's quite cool. But the sort of generic armies you saw before, I think, struggle a bit now. Chaos Marines are in there and all of their various flavors. Like, unfortunately, they are Space Marines' poor, decrepit brother.
Yeah, they never had their own Belisarius call, did they?
No.
That's what they're missing.
There's again loads of cool combinations of stuff that you can still kind of do, and there's loads of interactions you can play around with, but struggle to win games. Really, I would say like consistently on that part. Astra Militarum, I would say, are right slap bang in the middle, with a good player who's got his timings down and his movement down.
So no one we know.
Very good. Sorry, that wasn't me. That was Sam. You can blame Sam for that, Jim. So if they, like I said, if their plan works, you struggle to get the board back from them. You know, your units are been blasted to pieces, and there's just so much of it to deal with. And then there's always the inevitable Ogrin counter-attack in there as well. So that's really cool. They're sort of flying around in there. God, we missed anybody important?
I would like to figure out where orcs sit in this, because it's one of the armies I don't see often enough to really know how well they're doing these days. But they seem to have got some more cool toys. I just don't know what they do anymore. But
they're now such an extensive range, and some of their things are really good. I think like the mecha track scrap jets, I think, are some of the vehicles that drive around and just drive into things. They got loads of guns. They're absolutely incredible. But I think they sort of struggle with being able to get actually like around the table, because obviously because of the size of their bases and how vehicles now interact with ruins and buildings, you can sort of find yourself, they're super quick, but are they getting to where you need them to be, like still in coherency with their own unit?
Yeah, and like these days, I've dropped 200 orcs on the table. You know, that might not go as far as it used to with the whole blast thing.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how that actually works out, because most armies you're seeing, you are going, okay, I'm just seeing units of 5, unless I'm taking large units anyway. Like orcs could. I still from like the sort of holding territory and taking territory, I can't see orc boys being bad at it, but I can't see them being good at the game either. They're really strange, in a really strange place.
We need someone to go on a massive war for us across the tournament scene, because
confrontation has
beautifully done orc army is something to behold.
Two or three, I think. None of them seem to be huge that I've seen,
which is good, because the scouring, if that comes up as a mission, is going to be a difficult one for mass infantry.
Yes, yeah. That restricted deployment zone
that's going to force CPs to make them go into reserve.
Yeah,
it's the only way, isn't it?
For sure. So that's super interesting. They're one of those armies. Like I've got the starting of a speed freak army in a box somewhere.
Of course you have.
I bought it at the start of lockdown. I bought a load of the vehicles and stuff, and I was like, this is going to be a really cool project. And then
I've got plenty of time.
And then
there was me joking about that plague, Calhob 19, and it's an actual real thing.
Oh no, yeah. That was I think that was my first like 40k furlough project this year. And then I used the boxes they were in as a footrest for like 3 months when I finally got back to work. So orcs are in an interesting place. And I think we're overrunning a bit of time. So anybody that we've missed, I'm sure we're going to talk about in depth. Obviously, we've not really talked about Blood Angel, Space Wolves, etc.
They're in the middle.
But
they always will be.
They're all currently in the middle, but they're all getting
top mid, I reckon.
But they're all getting rolled into the Marine Codex anyway. So that's really interesting. So that's going to be probably a good place for us to stop here. I know we're limited on time this week, so that will be us done for the main section. I don't know if you want to stay on for a little bit, Sam, and just talk a little bit more about some like cool things we've seen, and just have a general wrap up as we have to lose Ricky.
Unfortunately.
So we'll leave this segment here. If you want to say goodbye, Ricky.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Family calls.
Okay, fantastic. And we'll I think Sam and I are going to talk a little bit just about other stuff we've been up to, just in a sort of wrap up. And we'll give everybody all of your social media details as well, Ricky. So stick around while Sam and I just have a little bit of a reminisce and just generally have another little chat. Thanks very much, guys. Okay, now that we've got Ricky out of the way, it's just me and Sam that you've got here. Say hello, Sam. Unfortunately, Ricky had some time constraints this week, so he's not going to be around for our sort of wrap up at the end of this episode. So unfortunately, you're just left with these two anti-Eldar idiots. About just sort of like a quick snapshot of what we've experienced, how we think the current codexes are faring in 40k, especially as we're going to get like a dump of Marine and Necrons, and then Death Guards, and then some more Marine supplements and whatnot. I think it's going to be quite a while until we see like a dramatic shift in what most of the armies do. It's quite good just to talk about how we've seen those armies, what sort of like challenges they face, being those sort of almost extended indexes now. They're transitioning from the previous game over to this edition, but they've got all of their toys. It's very weird.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. But I think it's going to make the edition really interesting as they catch up. I think there could be a few upsets coming. And ones I would like to see. I would like to see the Nids and the Genestealer cult doing well again. Just because they're really cool armies that I don't see very often. I would like them to be able to catch up. But
no, absolutely. They're both cool model ranges. Like, I love the Genestealer cult range. I fell in love with it as soon as it came out. I would ideally like to see what I think we're getting, which will be a rapid release of codexes and supplements throughout the next year. But I'd also like to see each new codex really making an impact. Because a lot of them, when they were released in 8, I don't really think they did a lot when they were released. Like, I can remember, I think Necrons and Tau were released at the same time.
Yeah, I don't remember either making a particularly massive splash at the time.
Yeah, I can remember opening the Tau book and being like, oh, okay, they don't do anything exciting. It's I can create a bubble of everything Overwatch is on fire all the time. And that was the only thing that was good in that book. So that changed. Some Tau builds then came into prominence, mainly through the ITC, just because you could manipulate their terrain rules to create unkillable Riptides, pretty much, and then just delete the armies that were playing those kind of missions. But yeah, I'm really Tau one army we missed in the roundup. Tau are bottom tier 2, I think, at the moment. Maybe top tier 3. I don't think they're really, really great. On an open board, if they go first, they can kick you in the teeth, but they've got nothing to stop your army doing what it needs to do. So I'd like to see sort of like where we're getting this major shift with Marines, where they're getting the extra wound, all of the war gear is being updated, all of the chapters being rolled into one, and then all of this new Necron stuff and how they're going to work. I would like each army to go through that and it be
massive. Yeah, I think each new book should cause a ripple in the meta.
Yeah,
that'll make it really interesting. And then there'll be there's so many people that are loyal to a particular faction because they've played it forever that are just suffering through bad book after bad book. I think this would be nice if this is the edition where everyone gets a piece of cake.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody loves cake. I'd like to see that. I'd like to have to factor in at least half 3/4 of the armies when you're writing an army list. So at the moment, you're like, oh, how do I deal with Marines and like maybe Custodes? And then an afterthought is, how are Harlequins going to kick my teeth in?
I've just accepted that Harlequins are always going to kick my teeth in now after the savagings I've had from Ricky for the last couple of years.
Yeah, for sure. So that's an interesting space. I would like the codexes to come out, but it just be like, I guess a lot of people like time to adjust to each meta shift, but I personally would just like to see everything come out really quickly
and everything be ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, not even necessarily ridiculous, but to a point
it can
where
hold its own.
Each armies can hold its own in a general sense. Obviously, I'm not expecting parity across all 25 factions. That's never going to happen, and I don't think I'd want that to happen because we're not playing chess. But each one to do the things that it's supposed to do really well, and even if that means like they're not even engaging in a straight up fight every game, if you can have like loads of Gene Stealer cult units running around doing actions that don't like kill anything, that's really nice and thematic for the army to represent. Their units are tying up the army, and then everything else is going on around. That's an army I think that should play like in a non-linear faction and shouldn't just be what it sort of turned into, which was just this is one of my 5 units of 20 acolytes that has 8 buzzsaws in it. You are dead. Like, I don't think it should just be that. There should be a lot more like intricacies to them. And then on the flip side of that, like Marines should just like rock up and kill everything. That should be how they win games. So I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a rapid release of books. Cool stuff coming out for everybody. Cool new rules, cool new actions. Unique secondaries for each army, I think, is something GW said.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
It'd be. I would hope that there's sort of one per category that currently exists per codex, and then them also be good and unique for the army, but not just auto takes, because then you haven't just Marines are just doing their Marine stratagem 1, 3, and 4. Oh, they're doing that every game. I can't stop them.
At 45 points, yeah.
So I'd like the secondary sort of part of the game to develop as more and more codexes come out. And even if you're lucky enough to be one of the first codexes, I would still like the kind of secondaries you choose throughout the edition. What as the codexes come out in those games to sort of develop against each army, that would be great. That's the dream. Can't say that's not going to happen. So fingers crossed. I'd love to see that.
I've got to give a shout out to my new favourite unit in the game. I think this edition is the edition of the Calidus Assassin. It just pays for it. It doesn't have to do anything, and it pays for itself.
I played against one on Thursday with the Custodes. I had 2 full battle rounds with my knights, where I was potentially having to pay additional CPs for everything I did, and it made like there were some instances where it's like, oh yeah, normally I'd re-roll that extra wound, or I'd re-roll those number of shots, or there was a point where like we had a couple of combats to fight, and I was like, he's going to fight against my big knight first with his wardens, and they're probably going to kill it. And then I had an armiger in combat with some of the Sagittarum. And I was like, I'd love to interrupt there, because each failed wound, he's killing one. He got in the turn before, sort of, and where they could retreat to wasn't beneficial, so they just sort of stayed in combat. But it wasn't worth 3 CPs to do it if he rolled 4+, and it also wasn't worth spending 2 CPs and potentially losing them. So he's in that really weird situation where I don't want to pay 3, but I'm not okay with losing 2.
Yeah, I can't see myself not finding 100 points in any Imperial list I make at the moment for that. It's such a pain in the arse.
Yeah, the only thing is obviously Imperial armies get the most as long as you've got a patrol battalion or brigade, isn't it? You can just slot one in without no problem. So that was because that was one of the options for my knights, and I was like, I don't have any of those attachments, so I have to pay CPs to have one. I was like, is it going to do is it worth those CPs? And I don't think it was, and that's why I ended up going for the Demon Fusion instead of an assassin or an Inquisitor. So we'll see how that goes out. But yeah, that army is for confrontation. So 5th confrontation is so Ricky. I'd love to have had him here for this chat, but he's had to shoot off. So I'll sort of run it through for him. I know he's a bit shy about plugging it. So
we'll do it for him,
man. Confrontation events is run by Ricky. He usually runs 3 40k tournaments throughout the year. There's the big singles event every October, and then in April there's a doubles event, which is a lot of fun. And then in July there's usually his team event, Lords of War, which is standard sort of ETC 4-player team format, where you get drawn up against another team and then pair off lists and then rumble. Really great tournaments. Obviously, the doubles and Lords of War has had to be scrapped this year because of old Rona.
Yeah.
And as it currently stands, 5th confrontation is going ahead next weekend. I think they've got the okay from the venue. It's a COVID secure environment that he's playing in.
Full risk assessment and everything, hasn't he? He's really gone to the wall to make sure it can happen safely.
Yeah, we're starting to see a lot of so obviously when the latest restrictions came out, you just saw a raft of tournaments that were all planned for the end of the year just be cancelled. But if you adhere by the rules that are out there, and you speak to your local council and you speak to your venue and you do everything right, there isn't actually anything standing in your way apart from unfortunately having to put in a load of draft to get there. And obviously, so confrontation can hold up to like 80 players was the original estimate for this year, but it's down to obviously less than 30. So that's going to be nice. There's going to be loads of space between all the tables.
Which means no one can get drunk and knock Paulie's army over again.
Yes, yeah. Shout out to Paulie. He's going to be coming down. I can't wait to see those Drakari. I think he's actually at no retreat this weekend. So he's got a busy couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's always nice to see that army though. I love it.
Yeah, beautiful, heavily converted, orange, tattooed up, awesome bases, conversions all over the place. Yeah, absolutely love that Drakari army by Paulie Wallace. That'd be cool. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it. Obviously, you're not going to be there because you're still locked up in your Fortress of Solitude, aren't you?
I am indeed.
Which is a shame. And a lot of our local guys are obviously unable to make it for one reason or another, and it's completely understandable. I mean, if it wasn't, if I wasn't fully aware of everything that's being put in place to keep everybody safe whilst this event goes ahead, I wouldn't be going to tournaments, however much like I need to go to them to keep myself happy. I wouldn't go somewhere that I didn't trust the person running it. And like I said, the risk assessment for the venue and the risk assessment for the event are top notch. You're going to see loads of space, hand sanitizer stations, one-way walk rounds. The event itself is entirely contactless. So all of your round scoring is going through best code pairings. All of the best army nomination selection is all QR code scans and online voting. I really can't wait for it. It'll be nice to just roll some dice, see some people, obviously distanced away from each other, and just see what the future of tournaments is like for the next 6 months.
Yeah.
So really happy. Obviously, there's a caveat that the world is moving at a rapid pace at the moment, but like I said, Ricky's put an extraordinary amount of work into to get the tournament up and running. And like I said, I wouldn't play anywhere that I didn't feel safe. I'm the most important thing in my life, so I wouldn't put myself at risk going somewhere I didn't trust. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to it. Seeing people I haven't seen in a while. It's a predominantly local tournament, especially at this size. So that's going to have it's always had like the feel of a local event, but it does sometimes pull people from across the country in. Yeah, so it's going to be great to see a couple of those faces, see some people locally I've not seen in a while, and just play some games. Like, not expecting to take any awards this year. Any of the years that I've played, I've not expected to take any awards, but I've managed to pick up a couple. That surprise third place a couple of years ago with Drakari when I hadn't played 40k for 6 months and hadn't actually played with the new codex was a very big surprise. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I know a bunch of our guys are definitely going. Myself, Jim, Pete, my lovely Pete. We're all playing Simon. So yeah, there's a bunch of us, Kevin and Helen, and yeah, we'll have a lot more about that. We'll be posting up loads of pictures from the event to show how people, so people can stay engaged over the weekend. We might put out like a list review. I'll have to speak with Ricky, maybe get something recorded for that and go through them all. Maybe do like a wrap up, sort of like mini show after the event, see how that went. Maybe even talk through the games that I've played. I'd quite like to do that. Yeah, it could be a lot of fun. It's just going to be just nice to play some games, even if it's a bit stuffy in the hall and everyone's got their masks on and you got to go one way around the hall, etc.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be odd, but
if I had to like tie an arm and leg behind my back to play at a 40k tournament, I'd do it.
I would cut those off.
So yeah, that's very exciting. Yeah, it's a shame you're not going to be about, but yeah, it's obviously perfectly understandable. So I hope you're going to be keeping up to date with us when we're going through the tournament, posting loads of pictures up. We'll send them to you. And
I'll be perving on those.
Yeah, so you can keep people engaged over the weekend as they're not there. Almost be a sort of non-roving reporter. Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, is there anything else that you're sort of like looking forward to that's coming out, or is there anything cool you've seen over the last couple of weeks you just want to have a quick chat about?
There was something shiny that caught my eye during the week. While I was perusing the old gram, and it was a Tzeentch themed Night Desecrator from the Crystal Labyrinth on.
I love those guys.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. It's all shimmery and it's got like Lord of Changehead coming out of its chest and shit. It's awesome. That was the nicest thing I saw. It's been a pretty hectic week, so I didn't get to do a lot of perusing, to be honest.
No, that's understandable. We've all got work and home life commitments. I know that you've actually been busy at work.
Yeah, busy with that.
People who don't know, Sam and I actually work together, and sometimes he can be free to help people with their tasks. Yeah, I know you've actually been cracking down and definitely done a job well done. What I've seen over the last couple of weeks isn't one particular shout out for a person, but a model I've seen painted by a variety of different people, and it's the Lumineth Skeleton.
The one with the sheer veil. Yeah, it's stunning. Yeah, I've seen a few done. What was the last one I saw? It was Garant or Garagagag, if you know him. He used to be the Whammy P Portsmouth manager prior to Lee. He's been working on one I've seen online, and it's just stunning. I don't know how people achieve that sheer material look. It's
like I could paint the face, and I could paint the veil. I couldn't paint the two at the same time and make it look like everything. And it's just one of those models that's sort of like, it is very weird and there's a lot going on with it, but it's one of those sorts of like canvases that people can go really wild at. It's like when Lady Olinda came out for the Nighthaunt, the Mortark of Grief, yeah. Like she's in that sort of like wedding dress, sort of veil, and then you've seen loads of people do like incredible things with that because it's sort of you know what it's supposed to be. It's a spooky ghost lady in a wedding dress, but it is like that blank canvas, and you can see like people doing like Mexican Day of the Dead sort of patterns all over it, or like bleeding faces coming through the veil. So it's just one of those sorts of models that sort of I think really captures the imagination of those ridiculous painters that are out there. So I've seen quite a few of those over the last week or so. And they look outstanding. So we'll be keeping an eye out for that. That was really cool. I saw a really nice. It wasn't finished, but I saw a really nice Night Preceptor on Warhammer TV's Hobby Roundup.
Oh yeah. No, I did see that. That was pretty sweet. Looked a bit dinged up, like it had been like heavily weathered, and I think someone had put a lot of work into converting it. Can you remember who that was?
Yeah, that was me. I have to admit, I was having a really, really rubbish day, and I was putting up our local club, Wargaming's normal Wednesday post, and I chucked on some bits on there, and then added it to my Twitter. And I was having a bit of a rubbish day, and then I got a notification from Warhammer community team, just being like, "Oh, can we show this on the Hobby Roundup?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's far from finished. It's a bit of a naff photo, but of course." Like, and it really made my day seeing that on there and getting some nice confidence about like the build and the color choices, and the sort of conversion that had gone into it. So that spurred me on to do, like, I painted loads more on that model just that night, just from the back of it. So I can't wait to get like a group shot together and hope to get them back on there. So that'd be really cool. And that does mean that 2 out of our 3 hosts have had stuff on the Hobby Roundup, and
Ricky hasn't, but that's because he's a filthy pointy ears.
Your painting is very nice, but I would say out of the 3 of us, Ricky is the outstanding painter.
Yeah, but he's not here, so fuck him.
Yeah, he's not here, and clearly they don't appreciate the work he puts out. So how good can it be?
It just can't be that good. It is that good. He's quite a talented gent.
Yeah, he's told me how he's going to paint his custodes using like a bunch of color combinations he's used previously, and that they're going to be outstanding. So I can mock him whilst he's not actually playing any games with anything other than his black Harlequin army. So, so it's been nice to have just a little bit of a one-on-one with yourself, Mr. Sam. So I think that's probably a good place for us to leave it. We've waffled on a little bit, talked about some sporty case and some cool stuff we've seen in the community and what we're hoping to see going forward, and just looking very much to 4th Confrontation next weekend. It's the weekend of the 3rd and 4th of October, I believe.
I look forward to living vicariously through all the photos.
Yes, I will be taking pictures of everything, every turn, because I've got a Night Army, so I can push a couple of models around the board and easily take photos and not worry about losing too much time doing that, because could never send game updates with my Gene Stealer cult because I would just be profusely sweating, shoving models around the table.
Yep.
I can't wait to do that and see how see what we can do with a sort of like tournament report format, like a list discussion, go through maybe like the armies that would like really call in unique, maybe the winners' armies, and then just do some cool stuff in regards to that in a couple of weeks. So that'd be good fun. Where can people catch us, Sam?
They can catch us on Twitter, but don't ask me what the handle is. And also,
at War Down South podcast.
they can find our site, which is just really a platform for the videos that are on YouTube anyway, which is wardownsouth.wordpress.com. The recordings are on Anchor FM, Spotify, wherever you like your ear candy. Yeah, that's it. Personally, you can find me on 40 Hammers on Instagram, and we do have an Instagram account now as well, don't we?
Yes, yeah, Ricky runs that. So that's on Instagram. If you just search for War Down South Podcast, you'll be able to find us there as well, which is really great. So yeah, just well, you know where to find us because you're listening to our podcast. So that's great. So you can just find my stuff. My personal blog on Twitter is at Sir Callum, and Instagram I don't really post a lot on there, but there's at Sir Callum War Games. So thanks very much for spending your time with us, and thanks very much for spending a couple of hours with me this afternoon.
That's right.
Thank you very much for Ricky for the first half of the show, and get in contact with us if you've got any suggestions, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.